Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Stacey Hardy Chandler, CEO of the Association of Social Work Boards. We're really glad you're here. Today, we're all about giving you clear, practical insight into licensure, what it is, how it works, and how to navigate it with confidence. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so think of this as your opportunity to get grounded, ask questions, and leave feeling prepared for what's ahead. Thanks for spending time with us. Now let's get started.
Thank you for joining us for today's Know Before You Grow student webinar series. Today we'll clarify MSW licensure, what your state licensing board controls, what ASWB does, and how the master's exam fits in. We'll answer several common pre-submitted questions and then move on to our Q&A. Please use the chat. Pardon me. Please stand by at the end of our webinar series for a post-webinar survey. And when we're ready to begin to start the Q&A series, we will open up the chat for questions.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Ashley Lane, a coordinator with ASWB's Regulatory Education Team. I'm also a licensed master social worker in the state of Virginia, and I have worked in both micro and macro social work roles and have found my license to be equally valuable in both types of practice. Before our other presenter introduces herself, I want to take a moment to introduce Samantha Brennan, who you all just saw. She'll be our moderator tonight. Samantha serves as a coordinator with our Communications and Public Relations Department, and she has been instrumental in the creation and implementation of this series.
Perfect. And hello, everyone. I'm Dion Brown Bushrod. I'm the Director of Education Programs at ASWB. I've been a licensee, as I like to say, since the before times, since the 1900s. I'm licensed in Maryland, and like Ashley, I've had micro roles and macro roles. Happy to share those journeys with you. Today, we're going to walk through the licensure basics and licensure qualifications, and we're going to do it pretty quickly and clearly because we want to get to Q&A.
By the end of today, you'll know the three foundations of licensure, which are education, experience, and exam. You will also know who sets the rules and where to find official answers so you can plan your next steps.
So let's take a look at the poll results. Samantha, are you able to activate the poll? I'm going to look here on my
Yes,
other screen. Oh, I see it. Great. Okay. So where do you go first for licensure answers? The leading, who's leading? Who's leading is ASWB. Okay, then coming up behind ASWB is your school, then the state board, and then social media. So thank you all so much for completing the poll, and your answers are part of the foundation of why we put this webinar together. We want you to get accurate, clear information, and one of the biggest takeaways will be learning that it is your board that sets legal requirements for your licensure. ASWB provides support services like exam administration and official exam resources. And throughout, you'll learn that the distinction between your board and ASWB is intentional, and learning that distinction will save you a lot of time and stress. And we're going to highlight these answers on and on throughout our time today. So let's get started with licensure qualifications, starting with your board. Licensure qualifications vary by state, but there are three basic, and I won't say basic, I'll say foundational elements that are particular to licensure. And that is starting with education. So first, to apply for a master's licensure, licensing boards require an MSW level degree from a CSWE accredited program. Graduation alone does not equal licensure. Boards verify qualifications through a regulatory process and not an academic process. Next, a qualification. Next is the experience. Many master's category licenses require post-degree supervised experience. And I'm intentionally slowing down because we really have to go through this. Okay, master's category licensure requires post-degree, after-degree supervised experience. Now, supervised experience for licensure is not the same as your practicum experience. Practica meets degree requirements. Supervised experience rules are set by your board. So check with your board about supervision and documentation requirements. So, for instance, I mentioned I'm licensed in Maryland. When I was accumulating supervised experience for my clinical category licensure, for Maryland, we had to use a particular form with a particular date and had to make sure that I thoroughly documented clinical supervised experience. So, for sure, check with your board for any particular requirements that your board requires.
Unlike Dion, who's licensed in Maryland, as she mentioned, I did not need to complete any supervised practice experience to obtain my license in Virginia. So this difference really illustrates how licensure requirements can vary significantly across state lines. It also highlights the importance of researching the specific requirements in the state where you plan to practice so that you can effectively plan your path toward licensure. We've already talked about education and the experience requirements, so now we're going to look at the third requirement, which is a passing score on the Master's Social Work Licensing exam. It is really important to note that the exam is a standardized professional licensing exam, not a school test.
So, this is one of the most common questions that we hear. How hard is the exam and what is it really testing? Hard may mean what should you study and what does the question want you to do? In the next slides, we'll answer all of that in plain language.
So when you're taking the licensing exam, think of it as a reflection of social work practice. Many of the questions are scenario based, so you must put yourself in the position of working through professional reasoning and professional responsibility, which is why the exam can feel different from an academic test. So back to the question from the previous slide, what is the exam testing? It assesses day one competence, the safe and ethical decision-making application of social work knowledge in licensed practice.
So, another question we hear is who writes the exam? And another question after that is it based on real practice? The exam is written by licensed practicing social workers. It's not written by machines or individuals who are disconnected from the profession. The exam is developed by licensed practicing social workers along with testing experts, and they use a national practice analysis so it reflects the real decisions that social workers make. This has been a major year for the exam. We did a binational between US and Canada search of licensed social workers, inviting them as contracted consultants to help us develop new questions for the exam. We received over 1,000 applications of, again, real life social workers. If you'd like more information about these real world, real life practicing social workers, please visit aswb.org/yearbook.
Now we're going to talk about the exam structure a little bit. So the exam currently consists of 170 multiple choice questions, which is administered over a 4-hour testing window with a 10-minute scheduled break after 85 questions. When the break begins, you cannot return to the first 85 questions, so make sure to manage your time accordingly. However, beginning in August of 2026 of this year, the exams will introduce some updates that we want to flag for you all. There will be 122 questions, and they will include more 3-option items with fewer 4-option items.
So, even with the upcoming exam changes, your preparation does not change. We recommend using effective study strategies and seek accurate information to help you prepare. And as a registered test taker, you will later have the opportunity to purchase our online practice test.
To register for the exam, you will apply for the master's category license with your board, register and pay for the exam with ASWB, receive authorization for the test, and schedule the exam with Pearson VUE. And as Dion mentioned, once you register, you will have the opportunity to purchase our online practice test. And I found this resource to be incredibly helpful in preparing me for the licensing examination. So I really cannot encourage you all enough to utilize this resource.
On exam day, you'll test at a Pearson VUE testing center. You'll go through standard check-in and security measures. Remember, after the scheduled breaks, you can't return to the first half of the exam, and you'll be granted extra breaks. You can take extra breaks, but know that the clock doesn't stop. Now, to prepare, we recommend starting with official ASWB resources. So, where in the poll, you would start first with your board to find licensing information and application process. Feel free to contact ASWB for official resources to get started with the exam, and that's the ASWB Examination Guidebook. The guidebook will help you build a realistic plan. It'll show you to what to study. It's called the exam outline. And we really want to caution finding resources that are not ASWB approved sources. And the only ASWB approved sources that you'll find is on our website. We don't endorse materials that are not on our website.
The ASWB Examination Guidebook is a free download you can find on the ASWB website. You should use it as your source of truth because it explains how questions are written, what they're asking you to do, and which content areas apply to your exam category.
Ashley, I just want to point out also in the exam guidebook, I believe there are at least 10 practice questions in there for free.
Yes, definitely take advantage of those. Thank you, Samantha.
So once you are a registered candidate, you will be able to sign up with ASWB Central, which is our one-stop shop for everything you need to do with your license on the ASWB side of things. You can register for your exam, request non-standard testing arrangements, schedule your exam. That is where you'll be able to also purchase your online practice test, view all testing results online, and send scores to another state or province.
And pay close attention to the content outlines by exam category and the corresponding reference lists in the examination guidebook. These outlines help you study intentionally.
Now, I definitely would like to share that when I prepared for the exam, and Ashley, feel free to chime in with your strategies. I purchased this is again before times in the 1900s where you had to purchase a lot of books. So I purchased all of my books, and during the buyback, they would want to give me like $1 or $5 for my books. And my silent protest was that I'm keeping all of my books because I was super offended. Glad that I did because when I went to study, I put myself through a really big challenge. And with the practice test, any question that I got right, any question that I got wrong, I challenged myself through the literature to find the rationale. If I got the question wrong, why did I get that wrong? So comb through each piece of material that I could get my hands on and really challenge my critical thinking and my decision making. Ashley, what helped you when you were studying?
Yeah, I would say definitely joining study groups helped a lot, working with peers. And also the examination guidebook really helped with me understanding how the questions were written and how to approach them. And the mindset component, I think, is really huge. And working with my peers really helped with that because we were all in it together and going through the same thing so we could relate.
Perfect. Yep. So whether you study in a group or study alone, please definitely start with a study strategy. You'll find in the examination guidebook some elements on how the questions are broken down. We definitely recommend reading the guidebook cover to cover. Practice under timed conditions, and while you're studying, and the guidebook will show you this as well, watch for words like first, next, and most, and make sure that you're really putting yourself through the lens and your professional decision making, choosing the safest and most ethical professional action.
This is a question that we receive a lot. Can I take the exam before I officially graduate? And the answer to this is it depends on where you're located. It's a state specific or board specific question. So some states may allow testing in the final semester of school and others do not. So go to your board's official website and if needed, contact the board directly.
And as Ashley mentioned, mindset matters. We already went through a lot of content, and we promise you, you don't have to absorb everything today. Please use this presentation as a roadmap and come back to the official resources as you get closer to starting your licensure process.
You may need accommodations or other supports. Review the non-standard testing arrangements handbook early so you can understand options, documentation, and timelines. And it's important to note that this is a separate publication from the examination guidebook. We also encourage you to consider ASWB's free Fifth Theory Test Mastery Mindset tool, which is available for registered test takers.
All right, now that we've covered education, experience, and exam, here's the point why we went through all of that. The three E's supports how licensure is established in states. The three E's work together as a setup of minimum standards for states to evaluate competency, and those competency measures creates accountability to the public.
So who is in charge of the profession? States create social work laws and rules, so the state is actually in charge of the profession, not ASWB or other professional associations. Boards set eligibility, supervision, renewal, and portability requirements. Boards also are the ones who issue licenses, not ASWB. ASWB supports boards by developing and administering the exam and publishing official exam resources. So when in doubt, always verify requirements with your board.
All right, so I'm going to activate a link in here for you all in the resources tab. Is the ASWB laws and regulations. Sorry, and as you saw in the poll, pointing out, and a lot of you voted that ASWB is the first place to go to. Probably for the rest of our time together, you'll hear us sending you back to your board over and over again. We love to hear questions from you all. We love to engage with you all. But what we're coming up to next is really talking about how your board is really the first place to find your information. So, a little bit of background. Social work is regulated through state law for public protection. So, requirements are intentionally state specific. Again, use the laws and regs database. You'll see that there's a high level of information there. Scan that information, digest that information, and then you will want to confirm details with your board's official website. Make sure it's the official website. We come across like imposter sites for state boards and as well as ASWB. So make sure you're getting information from the verified source. For sure, again, visit aswb.org for a summary of licensing qualifications in varying states. But again, always verify on your board's website.
So if you've heard new licensure terms today, that's completely normal. If you have any terminology questions, make sure to drop them in the chat when that feature becomes available, and we'll point you to the right and official definitions. And we will also share a list of these terms and others after the webinar series concludes.
Okay, so back with the poll.
My favorite section of the whole
Yes.
presentation.
Yes, it is time. Just like with the poll, let's go through some things that we've heard and some things that we'd like to share with you. So, what's
All
the
right,
first myth?
Dion. So
Yes.
I've heard that graduating with an MSW means you're already licensed.
Well, the fact is, Samantha, that licensure is a separate regulatory process. So when you walk across the stage and get that degree, you do not instantly get a license. So, got to go with your state board and apply for licensure.
Okay, but graduating is one of the three E's of
Well,
licensure.
it is one of the three E's. It's a qualification on your way to apply to get the license. Graduating does not mean that you automatically get a license.
All right, next myth. ASWB decides if I can test.
That is not true. Your state licensing board determines eligibility, so you will apply, your package, your experience, your passing score, your education. There might be a criminal background check required in your state. You'll package that all up, and then you will apply to your state licensing board, and your state licensing board will determine eligibility.
Here's, I think, my favorite question. All test prep is ASWB approved.
No, it is not. Only official ASWB resources that examine exam development and help break down the question and anything that you find on our website, those are the preparation materials that ASWB supports.
And for the record, we do not have an official app. Just last week, I was in
Mhm.
the App Store and saw someone claiming to be our official app and approved by us. So that is absolutely not true. And our last myth, licensure only matters for therapy.
No, no, no. As a clinician, I spent many, many, many decades as a clinician. And that is not true. Licensure applies across generalist, macro, meso, and clinical practice. Anything that a licensed social worker touches is appropriate for licensure. So, as you can see, lots of information out there. We are here to hopefully combat misinformation. So, speaking of, we've got to level set a little bit more about licensure. I know this might be a little snooze-worthy, but I need you all to hang in there because it is important as you pursue licensure that you understand what it's for. So, licensure exists first and foremost to protect the public. It's to protect the public. It legally recognizes social work as a profession, and licensure helps to create this accountability through minimum standards. So let's repeat, licensure isn't only about therapy. Depending on your goals, depending on your state where you'd like to practice, licensure can support credibility and mobility across these different spectrums, this vast spectrum of social work practice, again, from generalist to meso to macro and clinical roles. Now, at registration, we asked you all to share your job titles. There is a range of roles among us, and this is exactly why licensure matters. It supports public trust in all of these different roles. It helps to boost professional credibility. And again, the license roles in social work helps to support the public. It lets the public know I have a social worker. Here are the reasonable things that I can expect from that social worker, and that's why the licensure matters. It helps us to promote the profession and it helps to promote your professional qualifications.
Because licensure is state-based, moving states often involves endorsement, and that would involve applying in the new state and using your current license and qualifications. However, the Social Work Licensure Compact is expanding mobility where adopted, but eligibility is still state-specific, so verify details with your board and official compact resources.
And we're hoping the compact is stood up by 2027, but there's a lot of work to be done. Check out this website, swcompact.org. See if your state joined in the compact and stay tuned for more information. So, speaking of information, for accurate information, we're going to contact our boards, right? So, contact them because your board is what sets up the legal requirements for you as a social worker and for social work practice. Contact ASWB for exam facts, and we also conduct regulatory research. And again, we also have available free official preparation tools. And again, please be cautious of lookalike websites or apps, and even the information that you find on social media.
Few important reminders. Licensure is a process, and today's presentation is meant to serve as a roadmap for understanding how it works and where to find accurate information. As Dion mentioned earlier, you are not expected to absorb all of this information in one day. Please remember that ASWB is a resource for you not only today, but throughout your entire licensure journey. If you think of any way we might be able to assist you, please don't hesitate to reach out, and our email contact information will be listed on the upcoming slides.
To keep learning with us, join the next session of this series, Clinical Licensure and Macro Licensure, and continue using your board's website and ASWB's official tools as your primary reference. We're now going to address a few pre-submitted questions, and then we'll move on to our live Q&A that for this session will be taking place in the chat that will open up then. And thank you all for our patience while Mercury's in the microwave. Our first question, go ahead, Ashley.
Thank you. Do felony convictions affect licensure? So this is a board-specific question. Many states require a background check or good moral character review, and each board defines how convictions are evaluated. So check with your board's published policy or contact the board for guidance.
All right, next, how much does licensure cost and how long does it take? Again, this is board specific. Fees and timelines vary based on application costs, supervision requirements, exam timing, and processing. Your board's website is the best source for the current fee schedule and for timeline guidance.
Right. Is it going to cause an issue if I receive my MSW in a different state than where I am trying to gain licensure? In most cases, earning your MSW in one state and applying for licensure in another is acceptable. However, licensure requirements are determined by the board in the state where you're planning to practice. So, for example, I earned my MSW from a school in New York, but I obtained my license in Virginia. So, because of this, it was really important for me to review Virginia's education requirements for licensure. Most states require an MSW from a program accredited by the Council on Social Work Education, or CSWE, along with the appropriate documentation when applying for licensure. So in my case, Virginia required an MSW from a CSWE accredited program, so I ensured that the school I was attending in New York was accredited, and this helped make sure that when I applied for licensure, there were no issues related to my degree being from a different state.
And I'm so glad, Ashley, that you brought up looking at the licensing requirements in the state you want to practice in. We forgot to mention for the compact, when the compact is fully stood up and your state figures out their process to grant multi-state licenses or compact license, wherever you're practicing, please make sure that you follow the laws and rules in the state that you're practicing in, as well as the state where you got your, let's call it, first license. That's going to be really, really important that you'll have to maintain compliance wherever you practice. So definitely keep that in mind. Okay. Why can't an MSW take the BSW exam? I know y'all at this point are like, if they tell us about the board one more time, but yes, one more time, we're going to tell you about the board. So, exam category is tied to the license you're applying for, and your board sets those rules. So, an MSW degree holder typically takes the master's exam. The bachelor's exam is generally for bachelor's category licensure, but definitely verify your board's exam eligibility requirements.
Right. How soon after graduation can I take the exam? Um, Sorry, but again, this is board specific. So some boards allow testing in your final semester or soon after graduation, and others require an application review first. So again, check your board's exam eligibility and timing instructions or reach out to them directly for more information.